to give my 2 cents about Duolingo. I'm in the middle of a study session with Duolingo. So Duolingo is really fun to use. I love the gamifications. They did something great with all of that. It's an app that is hated by most efficient language learners, I should say, and for good reasons. Because it doesn't work. I mean, like let's face it. Like Duolingo will help you with activities that are close to Duolingo situations. You see that Duolingo is mostly puzzles. You hear something, you have to type it. Sometimes you have to type, so you have to. There's a lot of work on spelling actually, which is pretty tough in French and not the most important activity for speaking. If you misspell something while speaking, nobody will notice. Okay, and also a lot of questions are actually like so easy, that like you don't really need to use your brain that much, even if you don't speak the language.
Gare.
So it's cute, it's fun, great
Garçon.
gamification. But look,
Le
I'm
restaurant
I'm
français.
okay. Like now we have something interesting.
Le restaurant français.
Yeah, le restaurant
Le
français. Okay. We have a
français.
lot of vocabulary, first
Le
of all, that
garçon
is like
mexicain.
very easy. Like article, noun,
Garçon.
adjective.
Mexicain.
These sentences, they use them. For example, that's why Duolingo has this cliche stuff
Je
like
vais à Paris.
this is a better sentence. Like, for example, the parrot is wearing a tie, or the bear is under the table. The reason why apps, and I know because I worked on a lot of apps. I started working in a language startup a while ago, and the app was first for like French people learning Spanish. Okay, so we have sentences in French that have an equivalent in Spanish. Convenient, there is like a way of using, polite you, impolite you. There is two gender, very similar languages, easy to translate. Then they add Italian. Okay, so now we have French for Spanish, French for Italian. All right, now it would be cool to have, Italian people learning Spanish, right? That makes sense. And then suddenly you see that the translation you use, like for example, in one sentence in French, I don't really speak Italian, so I cannot give an example, like would translate well into Spanish, would translate well into Italian, but if you take the Italian sentence into Spanish, people will say, no, that's not really the same thing, like in one sentence, it's more something you would say, like in a formal context, this is a bit more informal, and like while it was not a prime in this translation. And then you add another language like German. So you want, when you create an app, that you want to scale the content, you want to create sentences that are very easy to translate, with concepts that are not abstract at all. They are very concrete, like names of animals, colors. These things are extremely easy to translate. You want to avoid tenses or whatever. Duolingo is getting a bit far from this, but I think originally they had content that was really like standardized. Because if your sentence are like, the apple is red, or like the bear is on the table, take any language in the world, the sentence will mean the same thing. But take a sentence like in French, like tu t'y retrouves, which is like very abstract. Like, est-ce que tu t'y retrouves? Like, do you, I don't even know how to translate in English. Like, do you manage? Do you get by? Like, do you find what you need to find? It's a very abstract sentence. It's a sentence that we use in French. Like when, for example, you're struggling with something, like you're trying to find, like to make sense, to connecting, like to figure something out. And people will say, ça va, tu t'y retrouves? And this is so hard to translate even to English. One sentence in English would be kind of like, yeah, it can mean that, it can also mean this or that. And it's impossible to translate in multiple languages because it's a real phrase. Like, or like in English, catch you, let's catch up, or whatever, like something like that. It's really hard to translate in other languages. So apps want to avoid these phrases. Here's the issue. These phrases are extremely frequent in everyday language. People who use apps like Duolingo or learn like this kind of very good sentences that are very satisfying, like they are clean, they don't use a lot of these weird prepositions or whatever, like they have a clear meaning, clear way of describing the situation, they struggle in real life. How many French speakers, maybe you speak French, are so fucking confused when they go to France and they hear on y va? on y va means let's go in France. We don't say nous allons. That's not something we say. It doesn't mean anything in French. Nous allons. It's like nous allons. Where are we going? We say on y va, and we use on. So like this informal nous, or like very common, or like and y means there. Yeah, it's complicated. And va, go. Like let's go. On y va. Or like j'y vais. Like I'm leaving. Okay, j'y vais. Je me casse. I'm leaving. Je me casse is like more informal. Like I leave. So that's the issue. That's the first issue. The content of Duolingo is things that are like satisfying, very close to what you will get in a textbook. But unfortunately, the moment you hear French people thinking, they wouldn't use these sentences. This sentence, yeah, je vais à Paris. Yeah, that's a French sentence. Yeah, like okay. Oh, and you see that it can be translated to I go to Paris or I'm going to Paris. Already we have, yeah, some concept that is hard to.
Revoir.
Pierre. Nobody's called Pierre
Salut,
anymore.
Patricia.
I'm kidding.
Comment ça va?
Okay, this is the same thing. It's a lot of reading, it's a lot of writing. That's something I don't like. If you want to speak a language and you're spending most of your reviewing, reading and writing, well, you're not practicing learning, speaking and speaking and understanding. Okay, now quickly, how to learn a language effectively. A better resource. There is not an app. But if you want to learn how to learn a language, I can recommend this blog from Scott Young, who wrote the book Ultra Learning. What's great about this guy is that he's a language learner, yes, but he's not a fucking polyglot. And polyglots are tricky with their advice for multiple reasons, because a lot of polyglots have learned so many languages that they are totally disconnected from what it's like to have never learned a language. If you're a native English speaker and French is your first language that you're learning to more than a high school level, or more like the Spanish you got in high school or whatever level, this is a totally different experience for you compared to a polyglot. Like for me, you give me any language in the world, you give me the Wikipedia page, I will look for the phonetics, I can read the phonetic alphabet, I know the concept of the perfective, imperfective, I know what is an adverb, I know all these concepts in linguistics, and I have ways, my brain has been wired through years of learning languages, like to think how things can be built in a language. That, for example, we don't use the verb to be in present tense could be a thing, that there are no plural when we express things, or whatever, there is plural, or like there is a case when you say one, two, it will be different. Like I have tons of concepts in my brain that will help me learn any language faster. So now it means that my way of learning a language could maybe not be, like, hypothetically, not be the best for a beginner. Now, I know that my way is efficient because I use it with my students and I see the result. And usually most of my students get like good results. The problem with polyglots is that at some point you can do anything, you will learn a language. Just like a top basketball athlete who wants to learn a handball, like let's say he's joining a club. He's been a top basketball athlete. He's like 28. He's joining a handball club. And let's say like people to learn handball are doing some specific drills of practicing the movements, and that's the most effective drills. They have the best coach. Let's say this top basketball athlete says like, fuck this, I will learn it my way. I will learn handball my way. And he does something that is insanely inefficient for a beginner, insanely inefficient. Let's say like he decides to do 20 push-ups instead of practicing, the basic moves of handball, I don't know, whatever it is, instead of practicing the thing. He will still be better than any amateur who is doing the right technique teaching method because of his background. It's the same with language learning. It's important when you get advice from a polyglot to consider that, yeah, maybe for him, like just listening to a language will work. Like for me, if I listen to a lot of Italian, I'm sure I'm going to learn the language. But that's never a way I want to learn a language. This is extremely inefficient. So the right approach to learn a language, if you want to speak, you need to speak. If you want to understand the language, you need to practice comprehension in the right setting. So what Scott Young, this author, who's great and like does an excellent job of research, and he's not like talking about his personal experience. He's talking about like what we know so far, how top performers do the things, how like people who learn a language quickly do it, and not only polyglots, people who start from zero, no language learning, do it. And it's actually very simple. That's what I like about him, is like he's not bullshitting saying like, oh, like, pop up. His books are great. Buy them, get them for free. Like the free books, they are great. There are a lot of excellent resources. It's very simple. What he recommends, like, go to a country that speaks the language. I kind of disagree, because I have a lot of expats living in some French-speaking countries. It doesn't help. You will not absorb the language or whatever. You learn the language by using the language. So if your family and colleagues speak English, you're not going to learn French. Trust me. Grab a phrase book and learn a few basic expressions and speak only the language from language. This is a very hardcore way. What I recommend, then he has like another strategy, like if you can travel, like use an app like italki. I'm on italki, but I have my own website, link in the description if you want to take lessons with me, and practice conversation. If you want to learn to have conversations, you need to practice conversations. It is that simple. If you want to know how to say things in French, you need to learn them in French. Grammar will not make you give you the ability to build any sentence. Grammar is for edge cases. Otherwise, there are pre-built sentences. You will not learn on y va by learning grammar. You will learn on y va by using on y va, by hearing it, using it. On y va is the thing I said before, which is let's go in French. So very simple. Speak with a native. That's more efficient. Then, of course, what I tell my students if they are using Duolingo is like, yeah, keep using Duolingo and we will do other things. If you have fun using Duolingo, use it, It's just like, if you want to learn handball and like you really like doing push-ups and it's not effective in your training, yeah, keep doing push-ups if you want. It's not going to help you much with your handball skills, but keep doing that if you want. So basically, long story short, it's very simple. If you want to speak a language, learn some sentences you need, practice them, use them, learn more sentences, of course, understand them, understand the underlying grammar, not too much, just enough for you to really be able to use these sentences and modify them. And it's a lot of reps. It's a lot of the same. It's a lot of the same shit. It's a lot of doing the same over and over to learn a language. It's a bit disappointing. It's not very satisfying intellectually, honestly. Like once you're doing it right, it's pretty boring and repetitive. But you speak a language and you learn it fast. So it's up to you. You can stay in your Duolingo, Delulu, having the feeling of progressing of making progress with a language, or you can decide to actually make some progress and learn a language quickly. All right, so if you want to learn, I'm here, link in the description, book a free trial lesson or write to me and we can see how I can make you fluent in French, I guess.